Mm-hmm.
So, XFL kicked off this past weekend. Heck of a weekend. Great games. And yeah, let's talk about it. So, first, we got the first game the Vegas Vipers and the Dallas. My gosh, that's 2020. The Arlington Renegades, not the Dallas Renegades. Arlington came out on top. Absolutely did not deserve it, in my opinion. But things happened, and Luis Perez just kind of fell apart under the pressure. Threw 2 picks in the second half, and Vegas disappeared. Scored a late touchdown to make it respectable.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. What's your thoughts?
I mean, like you said, this was a game that Vegas controlled in the first half. They looked like they were going to roll to victory, and that we were going to be questioning what Bob Stoops was going to have to do to figure out a way to get the Arlington Renegades back on track. But out of nowhere, the script flipped, and Vegas went from dominating to falling apart. Like you said, Luis Perez threw 2 pick sixes, which was the difference. Because as we've well documented before in the past when we did our show the other night, you look at Drew Plitt, he didn't even really play that well. He had a pick himself, but it wasn't a pick six, and he only threw for like 160 yards. It's not like he lit it up. And Arlington overall didn't have much on offense, but 2 pick sixes is costly. And it's really tough to win a game like that, especially when you don't put up a lot of points yourself. So the 2 pick sixes were the difference, helped Arlington get over the top, but they definitely, can enjoy this win. But if they're going to want to win more games in the future, they can't bank on 2 pick sixes to win. They're going to have to find more offense. And for Vegas, you don't turn the ball over. Luis Perez get back to being, the king of the USFL, the XFL, and all these alternate leagues like he's been in the past, and Vegas should be okay.
For sure. And then you're just going to need, your receiving core and just the surrounding players to step up. And
for sure.
I think, for first game, Montez Bryant did pretty good. So the nightcapper for night 1 was Houston Roughnecks stomping an absolute mud hole into the Orlando Guardians, and they just basically controlled the game from start to finish. We could break this down even more than we did on Sunday, but at the end of the day, there's only one thing people really talk about when it comes to this game, and I think we both kind of know what it is because we did talk for like 10 minutes about it on the show. Whether it was a catch or an interception, we'll never know 100%. They ended up calling it a touchdown, but like we debated on the show, it could have been an interception, but they went touchdown because that's what they called on the field. Brandon Silvers looked really good. Didn't look like he missed a beat. Cole McDonald, when they brought him in for the 2-point conversions or the extra points conversions, he looked really good running the offense. I know the biggest thing for him was just the run around the side, the run around the end to get into the end zone. But I think there's a big potential there for a possible QB battle in Houston. And I would almost wonder if maybe Houston trades away Cole McDonald if the season lasts. Because I know that's a big thing going around right now with all the ratings and attendance and everybody freaking out, being worried. It's like, just calm down.
If you wanted to succeed, support the league, man. That's the way I see it. If you wanted to succeed, all you gotta do is watch the game, show up to the games, and there you go. It won't fail.
And if you have the money, buy the merch, of course. But this game was really hard for me to watch. After a
It was
certain
not a
point,
very good game. That's why.
after a certain point, it would just okay. Houston's going to win, but how much are they going to win by? Like it kept my interest because I wanted to see. Okay, is Houston going to cover the over under by themselves? Because it was 34, so they almost did it. Freaking, it was nice seeing Wade Phillips too back finally for sure. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think overall with this game, I mean, to your point, I think the biggest problem with, like these leagues when a game's bad is the ratings. Because you think about college football or the NFL where you have other options to watch. Like if you have 4 games on at the same time and one game's bad, you just flip it to the next game. Well, with these leagues, there's one game on at one time. And if that game's a blowout, people turn it off, unfortunately, because it's a blowout. And this game was bad because, thanks Clint Moses for showing. I know 3Bs are in the XFL for sure. I mean, it definitely is awesome when you get to watch these leagues. That's a big draw for these leagues is when you get to watch, former players from the teams you like being in these leagues as well. But overall, I mean, this game just showed that Orlando has the worst quarterbacks. And that was the question that me and you were talking about before the season started. We were like, Orlando could be good if they can get the quarterback situation figured out, which me and you both said we felt DeAndre Francois should have been the guy. But for whatever reason, he didn't dress, he didn't play. So it is what it is on that. And, Paxton Lynch, for whatever reason, just cannot, live up to his potential. He did pretty good at Memphis. He got drafted for his size, which is why I always say that I don't think that you should be drafted for your size. You should be drafted for how good you actually are. And Paxton Lynch was clearly only drafted in the first round because he was 6'7", and he had a big arm. Because he just does not show the skills of a QB. He's not quick enough to escape the pocket. He's so big that he's an easy target to get sacked, and he doesn't make quick enough decisions. So overall, he's just a mountain of a guy in the pocket that's so easily, able to be sacked. And he panics and he throws bad passes. Overall, I just don't see a future for Paxton Lynch playing at the quarterback position anywhere, unless it's a league that's just so bad that he can see over everybody and just throw it to receivers that are wide open. Like, he could play in the Pro Bowl. That's the thing. The Pro Bowl was so bad with the way that was set up, with how easy it was for Geno Smith to throw balls to players because there was no one on him for like 15 yards. Yeah, Paxton Lynch could play in that. But other than that, actual football, I like Paxton Lynch a lot. I really want you to succeed, but I just don't see a future for him. It just isn't working out. And Quentin Dormady wasn't much better. His accuracy at times was actually decent. He had a couple of good throws, but then he threw a couple bad throws, so he was inconsistent. So if Orlando doesn't get the quarterback situation figured out, then Cody Latimer, Charleston Rambo, they're all going to go to waste. It's not even going to matter. You've got great receivers, and you're not even going to be able to get the ball to them. Houston, like you said, it was awesome to see Wade Phillips because he's like 75 years old and out there and coaching. Again, it was hilarious when the commentator was like, oh, man, Wade Phillips is spilling all the secrets while being mic'd up. It was hilarious. You got to be careful. It was funny. And overall, Houston dominated on both sides of the ball. And like you said, Brandon Silvers played a lot better than a lot of people were expecting him to. So overall, it was a great game for Houston and an awful game for Orlando because they just can't get the quarterback situation figured out. And they better hope DeAndre Francois can come in and start playing for them, playing well, because other than that, it's going to be a long season if they don't get anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. But I think Orlando can already see definitely time to move on from Paxton Lynch.
I mean, to be honest, you probably shouldn't have signed him in the first place. And again, it's nothing against Paxton Lynch because, again, I really want you to succeed. But, I mean, he failed in all the other leagues. He's not – you really think that this league is going to be the one where he finally plays well? The USFL, and yes, Michigan's offensive line was bad, as I documented earlier. That's why they got all those offensive linemen. But overall, he's just not quick enough to escape pressure. And he's so big, he's easy to sack. It's just the way it is. I mean, if he was made quicker decisions – and was able to scramble like Trevor Lawrence more, then I think he could be really good. But he just doesn't have that. And he was able to succeed at Memphis because it was a smaller conference, and they had good weapons on the outside, and that's why he succeeded.
I mean, yes, to your point, it's like he's a taller Trevor Lawrence,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
He reminds me of Brock
Well,
Osweiler too.
he's a slower Trevor
Yeah,
Lawrence.
Paxton Lynch and Brock Osweiler are really similar, and Brock Osweiler didn't make it either, unfortunately.
Sometimes, these smaller school QBs are hit and miss, I mean, because if you look like at Joe Flacco, that's a big hit right there. Super Bowl champion. But for whatever reason, Osweiler and Paxton Lynch, who coincidentally both played for the Broncos after Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm. And Clint Moses says, he's got one player running back for DC from Oregon State, and then you got an offensive line for Orlando. Well, I mean, he wasn't giving Paxton enough time, or Paxton wasn't getting the ball out quick enough because it was ugly for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now let's talk about the big Sunday games. Man, we're almost half a week past. Actually, we are half a week past from these games, and I'm still pumped over this. This game, we have talked about all of these games endlessly, and I love this game specifically. I love both Sunday games, but this game specifically was outstanding. Yes, a lot of it hinges on the last 2 minutes of the game, as Edward likes to point out, because that's when AJ decided, oh, I'm going to be prime Alabama QB again, and just torches San Antonio. All game he was just and then all of a sudden it's like something clicked in his head, and it's like, you're done. Jack Cohn, I kind of felt like we would see that kind of performance from Jack Cohn just because first professional start technically, and he just came out of college. So the potential is definitely there. He looked pretty good. He looked a lot better, in my opinion, than McCarron until the last 2 minutes of the game. But still, I mean, nothing really, explosive, high-powered about any of these games, really. A lot of the outcomes for this week's games had depended on the defense in the long run. So, Penny, for your thoughts?
I mean, I think overall this game, like you said, I mean, Edward, he's right. I mean, he might be throwing shade a little bit at McCarron and, Alabama and everything, but it doesn't matter. He's right. This game was not good until the end because A.J. McCarron was terrible. I mean, he looked like a guy that you're questioning why he's still playing football. And then the script flipped and he started playing really well. And it was nice to see because A.J. McCarron was a solid player. I mean, he was at Alabama, and the reason why a lot of people like A.J. McCarron and Greg McElroy when they were at Alabama, because that was before Alabama became dominant. Once Alabama became dominant, that's when the love for the quarterbacks waned because it was just a recurring thing every year. That's why a lot of people like these two. That's just the way I see it. But A.J. McCarron, I mean, he had, a pretty decent NFL career. He never really was a starter for long. He was at the Bengals and he played some. And, when Andy Dalton got hurt or went down, and, he was not bad, but he wasn't, elite either. So I think overall it's nice to see him in this league to be able to play football again. And he proved in the last, 4 minutes of that, or 2 to 4 minutes of that game, that he still got it. He's still capable. And I think that the rules of the 4th and 15, giving you a shot to go for a 4th and 15 to pick it up instead of doing an onside kick, it gives more teams opportunities to have, a chance to come back. And some people like that, some people don't. Because again, if you like a team being able to have a chance to come back, then you're going to like this rule. If you're a person that wants the team that's winning to win the game, then you don't like the rule. It just depends on what you see. If you just like entertainment and wow, St. Louis came back, but if this was the NFL rules, they more likely don't come back because they kick an onside, don't get it, and then San Antonio wins. But overall, it was a great game. Like you said with Jack Cohn, he was rusty. I think he, is really solid quarterback, and he'll start playing better as the season goes along. But St. Louis did get bailed out by the rules of the XFL, and A.J. McCarron woke up in the last couple minutes of the game, and he played really well. And to Clint Moses' point, play defense if you want to win. I think overall you can make a big argument, with a lot of these teams that their defenses have been good, the teams that have won, but it's also been the team on offense that makes the mistakes. Because Vegas clearly wins the game over Arlington if Louis Perez doesn't throw 2 pick sixes. So it's also the mistakes of the offense. Kind of plays hand in hand.
Yep, absolutely. So, for the last game of the night for the week, we saw DC almost get run out of their own stadium against Seattle, which is crazy because Ben DiNucci didn't even play that well. Realistically, he didn't. The defense has stepped up and really helped. And I think, as funny as it is to say, the big tide turner had to be the taking away the beer snake and fans throwing lemons on the field. As far as the actual play, though, neither quarterback that played for DC looked very good. Jordan Teamu had a touchdown
right there, basically.
He had a touchdown, but it was a running touchdown. Derek King, I think, had a touchdown, but it was a running touchdown. I mean, you've got the run game. You need to find the balanced quarterback. You need to – because the thing is like, okay, so in XFL 2.0, Jordan Teamu played for A.J. McCarron's team, the St. Louis Battlehawks. And he was average to okay with them. And you're starting to see that that's just kind of how he is, which it does stink because in college he was a pretty good player. And I just worry that with these guys that are not too far out of college, like AJ McCarron gets an exception because he has been out of college for like 10 years. But, Teamu, not very long. And Jack Cohn, fresh out, so he gets the exception. That's like, I hate to say this, but I think these guys peaked in college as far as success, playing good, and all that. Now, if we look at the other side, with Ben DiNucci, you had Ben, you got Josh Gordon finally coming back, so you got the headline there. You got the running back out of Marshall. I forget what his name was. He played decent. Ben DiNucci, for a long bit of the game, DC was making Ben DiNucci look like freaking Tom Brady. But, yeah, floor is yours.
I think overall you look at, when you talk about quarterbacks like Jordan, Teamu or Derek King, that's why Malik Cunningham right now has been drafted to the, USFL. Because when you have a quarterback that can run, that's a great talent to have, to use your legs and get scores. But you have to be able to throw the football. Because that's like the biggest knock against Lamar Jackson right now, with the Ravens, because he's a supreme athlete, but it's about throwing the ball consistently. You have to be able to do both. If you can't do both at a high level, then it is really tough to be a quarterback in the National Football League. You look at Cam Newton as an example. He was huge. And, I mean, he was just Mack trucking everybody. But it caught up with him eventually. But a lot of these guys, like Lamar Jackson, Malik Cunningham, they're not like Cam Newton build-wise. They're not going to be able to take the hits forever. I mean, that's why, again, Lamar Jackson hasn't even finished the season hardly ever. That's why everybody's saying, well, he doesn't have a great postseason record. Well, he's barely been in the postseason. So I think overall with quarterbacks like this, they're flawed because they're playing a position that the primary thing that you're supposed to do is throw the football. You're not supposed to run more than you throw as a quarterback. Khalil Tate was a legend at Arizona, but he got hurt, and then he wasn't as, flashy running the ball as he was before. He goes to the NFL, they move into wide receiver, you never hear from him again. They moved into wide receiver because of the fact he wasn't a good enough thrower. Antoine Randall was elite in Indiana back in the late 90s, early 2000s. He goes to the NFL, he was moved to receiver for the Steelers, had the great play in the Super Bowl. You just look at these type players. They're really good, but they're not good enough at throwing the ball consistently. That's why they're in these leagues like this. If Jordan Ta'amu and De'Aaron King and Malik Cunningham can prove that they can throw the ball at a consistent level, in these leagues, they'll be in the NFL in a heartbeat. But like you said, both of these quarterbacks had a rushing touchdown in this game. Neither of them had a passing touchdown. And that's not going to, be good for their success if they want to be in the NFL. If they want to continue to put up good numbers in, this league and play in this league, they're not going to get benched in this league. They're not going to get kicked out of this league because they're great athletes, but they're never going to be in the NFL because they just aren't good enough at passing the football. It's almost like today, the perfect quarterback to people today is not Tom Brady, even though to me, a true quarterback is Tom Brady, a guy that throws the football, perfectly, dropping dimes at, to receivers down the field like Mike Evans, like he was this past season. That's the correct quarterback. But to people today, the perfect quarterback is Patrick Mahomes because he's a great runner and he's a great passer. It's just hard to find that, though. You can only have so many because you look at a quarterback, and a lot of people aren't going to know who he is, but Nate Sudfeld played out of Indiana in college. He's with backup with Detroit Lions. He can't run. He's like a 1980s quarterback. Can't move. He's like Tom Brady, but he literally can't move at all. And he's a pretty good passer, but he don't play. He's a backup because he's a solid passer, but he can't run. A lot of these quarterbacks today, they want the mobility, but they also want the passing too. It's just tough to get both. But, I mean, I know that completely went off the rails and not talking about this game at all. But this game was a good game, but the quarterback play was poor on both sides of the ball. Both teams not great on passing. Both these teams, if they want to win well in this league, are going to have to get better play from their, the quarterback position. And like you said, with Seattle, you got Josh Gordon. You don't want him to go to waste. And overall, I think both these teams are going to have success, but especially for the DC Defenders, De'Aaron King or Jordan Ta'amu, whoever's going to be the primary starting quarterback, has to throw the ball better. Because if not, DC might win some games, but they're never going to be in the NFL, and that's what their goal is.
I mean, you could strive to win an XFL championship all you want, but not going to get you anywhere if you're not playing better than just enough to win the chip.
You have to do the things necessary for yourself to be able, to make the league that you want to be in.
Absolutely. All right. So our favorite time, we got the week 2 schedule in front of us here. Let's pick some games. All right. So first game this week, we got St. Louis versus Seattle.